And so I am so excited right now that we have the CEO of Red Lobster, Damola Adamolekun, that is in the house. Can you all give him a big Chicago welcome?
Good afternoon, Chicago. This is great. What a crowd. Good to be here.
So let's dive in, because we have to know today how a 36-year-old man of color is the CEO of the Cheddar Bay Biscuits.
It's first of all, it's good to be here, and I'll answer the question. But before I do, just want to say this is an incredible event. I understand our dear treasurer to my left has been hosting this for 6 years now. I'm not aware of anything like this that exists outside of this event. So, thank you to Treasurer Melissa for organizing, for the sponsors. It's important to discuss the topics that we're discussing here, which is how to create wealth, how to grow the community, how to move forward. So I'll start by just saying, awesome event, great to be here, and I'm excited to talk about some Cheddar Bay biscuits with you all. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
And we just had lunch, but we always have space for that. I thought he was going to ship in some Cheddar Bay biscuits for us, but...
They didn't ask. It could have been done. They didn't ask. Next year.
This is the CEO. Why didn't we ask, right? If anybody can do it, it's him.
It's possible. Next year.
All right. So, Damola, let's talk about your journey, which is extraordinary. From Nigeria... to Wall Street.
Okay. To Wall Street, yep.
To becoming CEO of Red Lobster. Can you share how those experiences helped you to shape you into the leader that you are today?
Yeah, I'd say that, first of all, I'm very lucky, because the most important thing in developing as a person, I think, is the people who raise you. So I have wonderful parents. I have a good family. They stressed the right things when I was young. They stressed achievement and built confidence in myself and my siblings. So I think where you come from is the first most important thing on the path. And then, my childhood was chaotic in a way because we lived in so many different places. But I think the good thing it did is I met a lot of different people when I was very young from different countries, with Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Netherlands, Illinois. So, I lived in Springfield when I was young for 4 years as well. So through that, you learn, people are different, but in some ways they're also the same, right? They're similar. And so you learn what connects people, you learn what moves people, you learn how to interact with all types of people, which is important in my job and in life, I think. So, that was that. In terms of, getting on the finance path, I think, when I was in high school, I just decided that I wanted to try to do something important with my life, and that's the thing that I chose, right? Now you can choose anything, and then you just have to kind of make things happen, right? And we can talk about how exactly I did that, but in high school I decided I wanted to work on Wall Street, and we made that happen, when I got to New York City.
Wow. So from Nigeria to Wall Street, to CEO of Red Lobster, 36 years old. I would probably repeat that 1,000,000 times throughout this whole segment, because I want that to resonate with us. Because many a times we think that this is just someone we look at and say, wow. But this is not just someone we can say wow to. It can be us. It can be your child. What you see before you is attainable. And we bring leaders like Damola here because I tell you, if I'm like you, I want to see people like me. And so it's important that we see people that are us so that we know there is hope. So thank you, Damola.
You're welcome. And what you said is true. I think that, I always tell people, I think excellence can be a habit. It's not an accident. It's something you can develop. Leadership is self-improvement. You become a better leader by becoming a better person. And so, for yourselves, for your children, I think it's important to not view anything as unattainable. even when I was young, I felt like I could do anything, and you was just deciding what it is that I wanted to do and making these things actually happen and coming up with a plan and executing. So it's a mindset shift, which is that the world is yours. You need to know what exists out there. So coming to stuff like this is helpful. You need to know what the opportunities are. You need to choose your path, and then you need to be ready to work, because it's not easy to make these things happen. But for yourselves, for your children, what Melissa said is spot on. Like, no, nothing is off limits and nothing is unattainable. It's just about building the confidence, building the skill set, and working hard to make things happen.
Let's talk a little bit about your path, because we mentioned Wall Street, CEO of Red Lobster. We need a little bit more detail. How did you get to where you are today? And I'm number one, but number two, I'm confident, because you're human and life be lifing. I'm confident you've had some challenges along the way. How did you overcome them to be 36 years old, CEO of a major chain?
So, success begets success, right? Like, that's you don't get to anywhere, but certainly the position I'm in overnight. So it takes a lot of consecutive wins. Starting again from high school, I just wanted to go to an Ivy League school. That was my first goal. And I went to Brown. Then I wanted to go to Wall Street. I got the job at Goldman Sachs. Then I wanted to work in private equity. I got the job at TPG. Then I wanted to go to business school. I went to Harvard, right? So it wasn't like I woke up at 20 and said I wanted to be CEO of Red Lobster. You take the win that's in front of you, right? And then it creates more opportunities, and you take the next win. It creates more opportunities, and you take the next win. So you can have an idea where you want to end up, but you really need to focus on the things that are in front of you. And if you succeed at those, then more opportunities will accrue. So in terms of moving, I was doing a finance career, right? I was working at banks and hedge funds and private equity. In terms of how I got into the restaurant business, we bought P.F. Chang's when I was much younger. I was 29 when we did that deal. And I was working at a hedge fund in New York, and we bought P.F. Chang's, so we owned it. I didn't plan to run it, but circumstances dictated that I needed to, because COVID happened, the restaurants were shut down, and we had a bunch of issues. We lost a CEO, and it was my deal. I was responsible for it. So I more went out there to try to salvage the situation. I was 30 at that point. And then it went well, right? I went out there, took over, we saved the business, we turned it around, we did a lot of good things, remodeled the restaurants, launched a delivery platform. So we did a lot of smart things during COVID, and that business it ended up being a big success. And so, I went back to finance briefly, then we saw an opportunity to do something similar with Red Lobster. So I partnered with different people, but we bought Red Lobster out of bankruptcy last year, and are in the process of making a lot of great changes to make it a great company again, right? It's a hard thing to do, to fix something that's been broken, right? But there's a lot of reasons to do it. A lot of people love the brand. A lot of people want it to survive, and so we're doing everything we can to make that a reality.
That's wonderful. And by the way, Damola said that when he led P.F. Chang's, he didn't even know that he would be leading it. But I want to get something out of what you just said. Somebody say preparation. Damola wasn't in that position by accident. Although he said he was not supposed to be leading it, circumstances happened that he was able to lead it. And so what are we doing to position and prepare ourselves that we can fall into? Because that's what he said. He fell into the position, but he had to prepare himself in order for that to happen. So I just got that word today.
Well, I'll add on to that. I didn't fall into it. I was asked by the president of Paulson & Company, who's John Paulson. He runs one of the biggest hedge funds in the world. Why did he ask me to do that? Because I worked for him for 5 years and he trusted me, which means everything I did over those 5 years led to him deciding that was the best option. So it's you don't fall into anything. I don't believe that. I think that you build yourself up, and when opportunities come, you take them, right? And you need to build trust with people. People need to, and you can't fake that. You can't work for somebody for 5 years and pretend to be good, or pretend to be solid, or pretend to be intelligent, or pretend to be capable. Like, you just have to be those things. And if you are, then you'll find opportunities, you'll seize them, and you'll make the best of them.
I love that, Damola. And so, yeah, let's give that a hand. I know that they saw that in him. That they saw that, and I hope for the young people in the room, and by the way, Damola, this year was our first year that we actually have young people upstairs on their own curriculum. We are teaching young people from an early age. What Damola just stated, he was asked to lead PF Chang's because of his work ethic, because of what they saw in him. And so I really want to stress that, and thank you for even talking through that. But let's talk about this, because Damola said he's 36 years old, and I heard him say, when I was younger. Now, I just turned 50, and I'm thinking, you're young, Damola, you're young now. But let's turn to like the millennials and the Gen Zs. You know, Red Lobster is a brand that I grew up on. Many of you in this room, we all know Red Lobster. But when you talk about and look at the millennials and the Gen Z who now drive the economy, how are you keeping the brand fresh and relevant to especially like this digital first lifestyle?
You know, it's important, right? If brands don't evolve, they die. You want to be balanced in that you don't want to move so quickly that you alienate the people that go to the brand now, but you have to be ready for the next generation at the same time. So it's tricky, and it's a balancing act. But the things you can do, number one, is stay close to what people are saying, what people want, what the culture dictates. And you know, if you're not aware, then you can't make the right decisions. So awareness is key, and that's a first step. Number two, I'd say once you know what the people are looking for, communicating and engaging and letting them feel like they're part of the process is important. So, you know, we launched seafood boils because I thought that was something that this generation would like. And when it came out, we were engaged with the customers, we were listening to feedback, we were responsive. So you can bring people along on a journey as you evolve to where, you know, not everything has to be perfect in that scenario because they're part of the process and they know you're listening. And when there's tweaks to be made, you make them. Right, so it's an ongoing process, but it's important because tastes do change, right? Things that worked 15 years ago might not work today, and if you're not listening and adjusting, then you're gonna miss that, and you'll end up irrelevant, right? So it's important. It's an important question, and it's something that we spend a lot of time thinking about.
And so, in following up to that question, what are some innovative things that you are most proud of?
You know, it's a couple of things. Number one, on the menu, I think we've done some cool things that people seem to really like. So that is, you know, that makes me happy because, you know, and I'll say this: the company's had a long-standing relationship with people who drive the culture forward. It's always been cool. It's always been on the forefront of culture, right? It's in Beyonce songs, Nicki Minaj songs, like, you know, whatever. And it's important to stay that way because that's how you keep the brand moving forward. So getting the menu right, getting these innovations right, you know, that's been important. Number two, I'd say the work we're doing on digital, right? Like being able to, you know, order Red Lobster, have it delivered on time, have it show up the way people want in a digital first, e-commerce first economy is really important. And we've done a lot of work there, and there's more to come. And then finally, I think service is a big thing. You know, we rolled out when we bought the company. When I took over, there had been a lot of cuts to how we were staffing the restaurants based on the fact the company was bankrupt, to where there wasn't enough touch points in service. There wasn't always a host waiting to greet you when you walked in. There weren't enough servers sometimes. There was enough bartenders sometimes. So we invested in service. We invested also in training people. We named it red carpet hospitality. But that effectively just means treating people as if they're family, as if they came into your house for a meal, right? So it's building connections with the guest. You know, RED stands for recognize, engage, and delight. So recognize people when they come in, engage with them as they go through their meal experience, and find opportunities to delight them with things that are important to them. And that can mean different things. Then people start getting creative. What does that mean? It means something different in every situation. So that's been a big win and something I'm proud of. The guest scores have gone way up since we bought the company, and it's because of programs like that, and people are responding and having a really good time.
Woo. All right. So I want you all to bear with me for a moment because I'm going to talk just very briefly about finance. And here's why. Damola actually has a very strong, we spoke about him being on Wall Street. He has an extremely strong financial background. Now the CEO of Red Lobster, strong financial background. Now as treasurer for the city of Chicago, I interact daily with people from Wall Street, daily. As the treasurer of Chicago, in addition to the investments that we do within the office, I also am the trustee on all of the employees' pension funds for Chicago. Now, what does that mean? Those are a little bit more aggressive investments that we do in pension funds rather than what we do necessarily inside the treasurer's office. Now, with the pension funds, we are making deals where I am seeing asset managers, managers like companies that Damola comes from, where they're coming into the room, $50 million, $100 million deals. And it is not many people that look like Damola that I work with every day. Let me say this again. There are not many people that look like Damola that I am working with on $50 million. $50 million is an average deal. That means we have more, we have less. And so finance, investments, he spoke about hedge funds. Investments, asset managers is a very lucrative career. If you are not familiar with that career, this is something that I preach about to our young people. I need you to go home and I need you to tell your young person, I want you to look up investment management. I want you to look up investment banking. Investment banking is a lucrative career, is it not, Damola?
Absolutely.
A very lucrative career. And I want you to say you've met an investment banker. You've met someone, and he's going to talk a little bit about how that even translated into hospitality. But this young man comes from Wall Street. Investment banking is where the money is at. So what did I ask for you to go tell your young people about? Investment banking. I assure you, it will not disappoint. Damola, anything you want to add to that?
No, it's a good point. And to get into a career like that, you do have to start early. Yes. Because it's, Goldman will recruit from certain schools, so you have to be there to even be able to talk to Goldman. And
Goldman Sachs.
Goldman Sachs, or some of the folks who are sponsoring this event, Wells Fargo, and we'll use on brand names, Wells Fargo and U.S. Bank, right? But they'll you have to be these places. It's hard to get to these places late, so it's important for the kids, if they want to do that, they got to focus on school. They got to have good grades. They got to get to a good college. You have to be there, because otherwise, they're not. You cut off the possibility of doing that, and there's no reason to do that because it's a great career. So there's a reason people. It's not like get good grades to get good grades. It's get good grades to get into the right places so you can have these opportunities, right? So the kids need to understand that. And when you do, it's not just banking. I mean, investment management, consulting. There's a lot of great careers out there, but they come from the world of they recruit from top schools, and so you have to get into one of those, right? So it starts early. Get the kids focused early, and like I said, anything's possible, but you have to be on it. It's not easy.
That's right. It's not easy. So let's talk a little bit. We got a little more time. I want to talk about how, from a strong finance background, how you were able tell me what may be different from you leading Red Lobster versus someone that was strictly brought up in the hospitality business.
I think I liaise very well between the company and the people who own the company, better than most because I've been on both sides at this point, right? I've been in the finance world where people own the business, they sit on the board, they manage, and they hire a CEO, and I've been a CEO now for 5-6 years. So I understand both sides and I understand both perspectives, which is helpful because it's easier when everybody speaks the same language, understands each other, can translate back and forth. So it makes it smoother in a way that I understand both worlds. Insofar as managing the business is concerned, there's a lot of things that you need to do. It's a people business, it's an operational business, but it all translates to numbers at the end of the day. And the numbers need to work in order for the business to keep going, right? And that's true for your personal lives, right? Like you don't live for money, but you need the money to make sense in order to do the things you want to do. It's no different. So in business you need to understand finance, and I think in your personal lives you need to understand finance, right? Because it's a facilitator for life. It's not the end all be all. You don't live for money, but you need money to do the things you want to do, right? So speaking the language, and it can be intimidating, but it's really not that complicated. It's just intimidating. It's like learning a new language. Once you learn it, then it's like, oh, that wasn't that hard. So it's worth spending some time to understand the language of finance, understand what it means, what people are talking about. And now you've got, the internet, you got ChatGPT that can help you, so you can make it a little easier, right? So it's worth figuring out because it is the language that business gets done.
And so also, Damola, you talk a lot about building wealth, financial education. Why is this so personal for you? And then I want us to kind of get into a little bit about millennials facing debt and rising costs. But first, I want you to talk about why is it so important to you? It's personal.
To me, money is freedom, right?
We just learned that, didn't we? All right.
Y'all talked about that. To me, money is freedom, and I think that's why it matters to me and why it should matter to everybody in our community, because if you want to truly be free, you need to be able to generate wealth. The way communities move forward is via wealth generation. That's the truth. There's a lot of other stuff people talk about, and it's all very distracting, but that's the core of what people need to be worried about, is how to make the community wealthier. Because if the community is wealthier, then that's how you move forward. They also sort of make it feel taboo to talk about. It shouldn't be, right? Because that is what it is, right? Like if you're not thinking about how to improve your personal situation, your community situation, generate wealth, then you're missing, I think, the most important thing that you need to get right to get all of your other goals right, for yourself, for your kids, for your family, for your community. So I think wealth generation is important. It should be spoken about probably more. I'm glad this conference exists for that reason. The answer is different for everybody, but it should be a topic that you're discussing for sure.
Wow. Okay, so millennials, and I know many people in the room have millennials, Gen Zs in your home even. We're seeing that more rising costs. This is something that our families are facing each and every day. Uncertainty about the future. We are seeing more debt. What lessons from your own journey can you share about building wealth step by step?
The equation is how much you earn versus how much you spend. You got to think about both. So
I like that.
The best thing to do is improve your value to the marketplace in order to make more money. What does that mean? It depends what you do. But whatever you do, being the best at it is helpful. The better you are, the more you're worth in that marketplace. And then being able to maximize your value, i.e. okay, so you're really good at a certain skill. How do you work with people? How do you lead? How do you communicate? How do you negotiate for your salary or whatever it is, right? So there's the skill, and then there's the soft things around it to help you maximize the value of that skill. And that's how you generate wealth for yourself or income. Now, the other side is expenses. I think, people overspend. That's just our culture, right? It's an American culture, and it's, more local as well, right? So people tend to overspend because, and social media doesn't help with this, because you think everybody's a lot wealthier than they are. and they're living lives that they're not. So people try to keep up with that and they overspend. So even if you're making good money, a lot of people end up in debt because they're trying to do too much. So discipline on that side will help, because if you can build up wealth, then you can live a better life long term and take care of your family and your kids and put them in the right schools and all that stuff. So it's both. Trying to maximize your value and increase what you can earn, and also be smarter about how you spend money, right? You got to do both.
And that's actually interesting when you say social media. You see people that looks like they're, as for lack of a better term, balling on social media, and then there used to be a statement, we want to be like the Joneses. And so you're looking at that on social media and you aspire to be like them, and a lot of people have gotten into greater debt from what they are seeing that's actually not the true story on social media?
Yeah. So a lot of you guys know this. I'm not even on social media that much, but you guys know it's a lot of faking on social media. It's a lot of pretending. So if you're trying to measure yourself up to something that isn't even real, what's the point of that? That's a silly thing to do. But it's hard because people grow up and they grow up on social media, and it becomes it becomes all they see and all they think about. But it's important to recognize that a lot of it is fake. There's good reasons to go into debt, and there's bad reasons to go into debt. If you went into debt to finance school that got you an incredible job and made you a lot of money, that's an investment, and that's okay. If you go into debt to buy a car you didn't need, and that's going to depreciate and going to be worthless in 10 years, that's a bad reason to go into debt, because you didn't get anything out of it really. Debt, people use debt all the time. You just have to be really intelligent about why you're in debt, and don't go into debt for bad reasons, and don't go into debt for reasons that don't pay off. I took school loans when I went to Brown because Brown's expensive, but I realized if I went to Brown, I'd have all these chances to do all these different things, right? So that was a loan to invest in myself to create opportunities, which, that's okay. If I took that same money and bought whatever was cool back then, I don't even know. This is 2007. What was cool back then? If I took that money and bought something that was cool back then and it disappeared, there's no real point in that. So it's intelligent. They call it leverage in Melissa's world, but intelligent leverage, i.e., debt, is how you have to think about it.
And then also, if you noticed a moment ago, and by the way, Damola is extremely, extremely popular on social media. But did you hear him say, I'm not on social media that much? And that really caught me when you said that, because we have to think about, what are we spending our time doing? How are we enriching our lives? I believe that if you talk to a very someone that's doing very well in life like Damola, I'm pretty confident they're not spending a lot of time on social media. And so we have to think about, how are we investing in ourselves? Is that something you want to add to that, Damola? Because I know that's a powerful point.
No, it's true. And social media is powerful, and it serves a purpose. If you're trying to build a business, if you're trying to build a personal brand, there's reasons to be on it. And you learn from it too. You can see things that are inspiring or helpful. If you're a creative, you can follow the right accounts, blah, blah, blah. There's reasons to do it. But if you're spending all your time on it, then you're probably not spending enough time in the real world, right? Which is where things happen. So it's just balance, like everything else in life. I used to say delete it when I was younger, and I thought it was like mostly corrosive. But I recognize the value now. But you just have to keep it in check. It can't be all you do, and you can't spend too much time on it, because you're missing out on the real life, right? So it's all about balance.
Love it. All right. You also, in the restaurant industry, employ, as we talk about young people, a lot of young people. How do you help them and create paths for them that you can help them with career growth? And we talk about wealth building. How can you, as Red Lobster, even help young people grow?
My first job was as a waiter when I was in high school. So I think service industry and restaurants are great early jobs for people, because you learn a lot of things. You learn how to balance, you learn how to be interpersonal, how to deal with people, how to manage a stressful, chaotic situation, which restaurants a lot of times are. Hopefully it's calm for the customer, but on the back end, it's chaotic, right? And you learn a lot of skills. You learn money management. You learn a lot of skills that are important in life. So I think it's the top first job in the country. Most people start in the restaurant industry. And I think that's great. And then we create opportunities if they are interested to advance into management, to advance into leading a restaurant, to becoming multi-unit leader, et cetera. So having the path where people, if they want to become lifelong restaurant workers, can move up, create a lot of wealth, create a lot of responsibility. Now you need a successful chain to do that, right? So the first step is run the business well to make sure there's opportunities for employment. So it all goes hand in hand. And the last thing I'll say is I think young people today, because there's so much digital influence on their lives, they don't have the same interpersonal skills as like we had when we were young and we didn't grow up on screens. And I'm probably the last generation before the iPhone, right? When I was young, there was no iPhone. We had the Razors and the T9. So we weren't on the phone. We weren't on the phones that much. So you learn how to deal with people a lot better. Young people now are on the phones a lot. So they have to find a way to become better communicators, better interacting with other people. And so this job is a great way to do it. I find that a lot of young people that work for us, they want to be good at hospitality, but they have to learn it because it's not something that's as natural as it used to be, right? Now we can train that, and they leave as a better, more well-rounded, more impactful person because of all the things they learn when they work for us. So there's the career path element. There's just the self-improvement element. There's the skills. So for a lot of reasons, it's a great place for people to work when they start.
And what's also amazing is it's important that when we're looking at these businesses, and I know there are some business owners in the audience, some that desire to be, we have to change with the times. I thought this was interesting a moment ago when you were talking about people ordering Red Lobster. Now, when I was growing up, that would be our treat to go into Red Lobster and sit down and have dinner. But you're saying that people are ordering from Red Lobster. That seems so amazing to me.
Yeah, and we're still mostly people coming in compared to other brands. We do lobster and crab. It's mostly people coming in to celebrate. But in any part of the restaurant industry, digital has become very important. So a lot of people order delivery. And they might eat at the dinner table with their family. It's not necessarily like antisocial, but they just want it to show up to where they are and show up on time, hot, and ready to eat. So that becomes a logistical challenge, right, of managing the logistics to get the food delivered on time and the technology that's involved and the people that are involved, et cetera, and the third parties that you work with, DoorDash, Uber Eats, or whoever you're working with. So it's a different challenge, but it's equally important. And people treat those occasions differently. Like if they want to go in, they'll go in. If they want to order, they'll just choose who to order from. So you have to kind of be able to do both, and it's important that they have a good experience whether they come in or not. I try to say I'm channel agnostic, which means that if I'm not trying to dictate how people want to eat, because people will decide that first. Do I want to go to a restaurant or do I want to order delivery? They decide that on their own. But you want to be in the game for both, and you want to do well in both. So you become the top choice regardless of how they choose to interact with the brand.
All right. Last question, Damola. Looking ahead, what do you see as the biggest opportunities for Red Lobster to innovate in the next decade, especially when it comes to the millennial dollar?
I think we've done a lot of things well. The one thing we haven't done yet that we'll need to do is remodel the restaurants to make them feel brighter, nicer, newer, et cetera, like the physical infrastructure, which takes longer because it's a real investment, real dollars, real design that's needed, and so we'll do that. But once we have the opportunity, I think that's the biggest thing we can do to deliver the experience that I want. Right? Is transforming the inside. So millennials come in. It's not just the food; they want the whole experience, and that's true for everybody, but especially the younger guests. They want a full experience. They want to be able to take the photos. They want to feel like they're in a nice spot. So. The restaurants, so a lot of them are old, so we need to do that, and that's going to be something I'm focused on getting done here in the next bit.
I want to thank you all that you took the time to invest in yourself to be here today. Financial empowerment is not something we call as a very attractive topic. It is not a topic that we talk enough about, to be quite honest with you. And so the fact that you all are here to hear this information, I want to give a round of applause to you for working on this for you and your families. I thank you all. Last question, and then we will have to exit the stage. We're ready for the next panel. Damola, for our fun closer, just for fun, what is your personal go-to order at Red Lobster? Oh, you all better listen closely. This is the CEO.
For me, it's twin lobster tails, right? It's in the name for a reason. But we got the Maine lobster, we got the Caribbean rock lobster. You get them together into twin lobster tails, and it's fantastic. So next time you go, you try that one, and tell them the CEO sent you.
All right, and next time Damola comes, tell him he can't come to Chicago without any Cheddar Bay biscuits. Let's give Damola another hand.